In this video, I'm going to walk you through the ins and outs of the multi-adapter use of the AirMagnet Laptop Analyzer tool when we also integrate the Spectrum Analyzer function. So I'm going to launch the AirMagnet Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro, and it's going to ask me which of the three adapters I want to use because it detects more than one adapter. And you can use three adapters with the AirMagnet Laptop Analyzer Pro, and it allows you to detect traffic on the channels 1, 6, and 11 simultaneously. Once we launch the tool, we're presented with the dashboard, which gives us a pretty good overview on what's going on the wireless network as it stands currently. You can see your current channel utilization. You can see if you have high utilization in any of the channels. You can see who your top talkers are based upon their MAC address, the top SSIDs by utilization, the AP security settings, whether there's encryption or no encryption, WPA, WPA2. You can see your active device count, how many clients are connected to which access points. You can see your top APs based upon active associations. And here on the left, you can see the channels 1, 6, and 11 being detected simultaneously, and you can see if there's any cross-channel interference or noise being detected on the channels. You can see here that channel 11 has a lot of co-channel interference. You can see based upon the little brown bar, there's a lot of stuff going on channel 11. Down here at the bottom, you can see how many broadcast or multicast or unicast packets are being detected, what our CRC rate is. We have the option to look at the CRCs for broadcast, multicast, or unicast. And you can see here that our 1, 6, and 11 is being shown as the ones that are being detected continuously. In order to integrate the spectrum analysis feature, we would go into Configure, and it's under General, Enable Spectrum Integration. This change will take effect once AirMagnet's restarted. My adapter is connected and it's ready to be used. So once I click OK and I click OK, the application will restart. So now that we have Spectrum integration enabled in the Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro, I'm going to click through the different tabs and show you what you will see when you run the multi-adapter tool with the Spectrum XT integrated. When you click on the All Devices tab, you can see that the devices are grouped by access points and stations. You can see the SSIDs that are currently being broadcast if they're detected from the access points. If an AP is not broadcasting its SSID, anytime a client associates or disassociates, you'll be able to pick up that SSID in that packet. If there's not a very active user count on the SSID or the WLAN, it may take a while before the SSID is actually detected, meaning if all of the clients are continually associated, they don't disassociate, you're not going to see the SSID right away. And the same thing is if you don't have a lot of clients using the WLAN, then it may be a while before you see a new client join. These displays are sortable by signal strength. If you want to click to sort by the strongest signal strength, it will sort from top to bottom. You can sort by the noise percentage or dBm of the noise. You can sort by the SSID name or the device. If you want to look at just the access points, this is the screen you would look at. The red indicates there's a lot of co-channel interference. You can see we have lots of access points on channel 1 and channel 6. If we look at our stations, we can see more information about the stations, their MAC addresses, what type of security is enabled. Actually, the security being enabled is part of the access point. You can see in the SSID under the security field what type of security is enabled on the SSID. All of these line items have information that shows up when you mouse over it, so there's additional information that can be gotten as you interact with the application itself. If you want to look at the stations, you can do the same thing, and you can mouse over them and you can see what the signal strength is of the client. And if you want to know about the alarms that are in place, you would just double click and get additional information about the alarm type. It's saying that this device is unprotected by 802.1x, which is typical because in a home network you don't typically have a radius server set up, so you would just have like a WPA2 pre-shared key or something like that. If we look at the channels, we can look at 1, 6, and 11 all at one time. We can see what kind of data is being sent at what data rate. We can see the majority of our data is being sent to the 1 meg data rate, which is not good. you would recommend that customers disable the lower data rates, because if they have the lower data rates turned on, it means the RF footprint of the access point is much larger than it typically needs to be. Unless they have a specific reason why they have the lower rates enabled, you should turn them off, because it just introduces more co-channel interference. It introduces more overhead for the access point to be backwards compatible for B-only clients. So if at all possible, disable the B-only data rates of 1, 2, and 5, 5, and 11. You can look and see the difference between the 20 or the 40 megahertz channels. If there is any difference, you would see it displayed here on the screen. You can see the majority of the access points are on 1. There's a few that are on 11. We can look at the interference. Oh, actually, the interference is not available in the multi-adapter mode. So once I get through walking all of the screens with the multi-adapter mode, I will exit the application, remove 2 of the adapters, and go back into the single adapter mode. We can look at the AP list and look at the individual access points and get the signal and noise ratio of the access point. That's the default setting. You can see how many frames you're collecting, and you can expand this and see what kind of frames you're actually collecting. You can look at the different alerts and see what kind of alerts are going on. The media type, you can look and see how many B-only frames are being sent. You can look at the speed and see how many frames are being sent at what data rates. You can look at the megabits per second and see, you know, a really nice pie chart to show you what data rates your stuff is being sent at. So all of these menus are expandable to give you additional information. From the signal to noise ratio, you can look at the utilization, the receive and transmit CRCs, the retries, the broadcast of transmit, the Spectrum real-time FFT of the 2.4 gigahertz, which is nice, because you don't have to launch the Spectrum XT application independent of the Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro. So basically that means that if you're doing troubleshooting, you can troubleshoot with both tools at the same time in the same management interface, and it saves you a lot of time and energy. We can look at the 5 gigahertz lower. I don't think I have anything enabled on 5 gigahertz lower channels or the middle. I used to have some access. I do have some APs operating in the 5 gigahertz upper. We can tell by going into the start and going into APs and sorting by, actually, I take that back. We can see it in the spectrum analysis feature. We can see it here because the spectrum analysis card is using the internal wireless card on my laptop, but all of the other troubleshooting that's being done is only checking 1, 6, and 11, because the benefit of having the multi-adapter suite plugged in is that you're looking at 1, 6, and 11 simultaneously. You're not waiting the milliseconds that it takes for the system to scan through all of the channels. And that's good and it's bad. And it's bad because it doesn't allow you to scan any of the 5 gigahertz channels, because you're solely dedicating your productivity towards troubleshooting 1, 6, and 11 only. But it will allow you to do things like roaming analysis. And you can do roaming analysis between the 1, 6, and 11 channels on a wireless infrastructure and get additional information on why you roamed. If was there a delay in the roam, what device did you roam to? Did you roam from? So this is information that can be easily gathered with a multi-adapter on the 2.4 gigahertz network. The Airwise tab gives you additional information about things that could be problematic to a wireless LAN, and it's pretty simple and explanatory to read through and understand what exactly it's telling you. You can see that it says AirMagnet has detected beacons from a legacy BSS operating on channel 1 within the range of a high throughput AP operating on channel 5. So somebody's doing channel bonding on the 2.4 gigahertz network around here, even though that's not optimal. There are 6 APs with overlapping RF frequencies detected in channel 1. So basically there's too many APs set on channel 1, but in the deployment that I'm in, that's not something that can be easily changed because each one's under its owner's own management. So there's excessive transmissions taking place on the lower data rates, which increases the noise and increases the co-channel of interference. Looks like there's lots of management traffic overhead on channel 1. It says about 10%, and these are management frame counts of association, disassociation, and what have you. And then it will give you information about each individual access point and the problems associated with it. So that's very helpful information. I like the chart here shown in the top traffic analysis because it very quickly gives you a chart of the different SSIDs and what data rates the majority of them are sending traffic at. And this can be a big troubleshooting time saver right here, because if your customer has the lower data rates turned on, it can lead to a very high noise floor in the 2.4 gigahertz infrastructure, causing lots of retries. Your duty cycle utilization will be very high, and your end user wireless experience will be very poor. You can look at the different frames, whether or not they're management or controller data. You can look at the retries if there's any. You can look at the addresses, whether they're unicast, multicast, or broadcast. And you can look at the media type. Is it N, is it G, is it B, or is it A? You can also look at your top 10 stations sorted by speed, and you can get the MAC address of the station and see how much data it's pushing and on what data rates it's pushing it on. You can look at the top 10 channels and look at the speed. So everything's on 1. The top 10 devices, again, look at the speed or the address. What are they sending? Retries, any retries. And you can also look at the compliance. There's a bunch of canned reports in here to allow you to use AirMagnet Wi-Fi Analyzer to show the compliance with different enterprise mandates. You have the DoD 8100.2, there's the EU CRD, there's FISMA, GLBA, HIPAA, ISO 27001, PCI DSS, and it will give you a nice report that shows you exactly what all of the problems are and how many stations are violating what, and what sections are being violated. There's also a SOX report, and you can print all of these reports to a PDF and present them to the customer, or embed some of this data in your final deliverable. Reports tab, we can see all of the different canned reports that are available, and it's pretty self-explanatory what the reports are for. There are alarm details reports, alarm summary reports, chart view on devices reports by top 10, which are nice PDF versions once you print them of data that's gathered from the actual application itself. Lots of different charts. Top 10 by address type. We have compliance reports, and I will run the Sarbanes-Oxley compliance report to see what it has in here as canned information. So as you can see, you can navigate through the report. It tells you what's going on with the network and what doesn't meet compliance. There are custom books. If we go through the custom report, we can see that there's fields that can be filled in, who these are designated to. Other compliance reports will have different information. We can have a chart view of the device reports, and we can add and take away things from the cover, the table of contents. We also have the ability to look at decodes. If we have the SSID and the WPA2 key or pre-shared key or whatnot, we can actually decode the wireless data on the fly. So this is actually sniffing wireless traffic as it's being passed. You can see the source and the destination. You can see, we can look at different SSIDs. We can apply a filter. We can do lots of different stuff with this data that's being detected by our wireless cards. If I click over into the Wi-Fi tools, we have lots of different tools to test the efficiency between an AP and a station. We can test the downlink or the uplink. We can look at the overall analysis between an access point and a given station. We can do a throughput simulator for a 2.4 or 5 gigahertz network. We have a device throughput calculator, which can tell you what the approximate output would be depending upon what options you choose as parameters for what you want to calculate the approximate throughput of a network for. The device throughput calculator allows you to use different device parameters, short guard intervals or not short guard intervals. You can do 20 or 40 megahertz wide channel bands. You can use different max frame sizes. You can run this tool to calculate the approximate throughput of a given infrastructure that you're planning for. A greenfield deployment, where 54% of the frame exchange will be data. You can see how long it will actually take, how much of it would be overhead, and what your maximum physical data rate would be if you're having 3 spatial streams with a 64 QAM. You can look at the RF coverage for a given SSID. I will pick this one and I will start. And you can see the chart will start to log the signal to noise ratio. And it will show the coverage as you walk around or nearby the access point itself. So you can track the signal to noise ratio of a single access point on demand. You can look at the signal distribution. And I will choose this. And here it will also chart the signal to noise ratio as you walk around. We can also chart for a single station and do the same thing and basically track the signal to noise ratio for a given station. We can also use it in site survey mode, where we can choose a given SSID, and there's no profile because I haven't configured the security parameters within the Laptop+Analyzer tool. But if I had done that, then I would be able to do a quick and dirty site survey where you wouldn't actually get a heat map, but it would give you data on the signal to noise ratio for a given client. It would show you if there was any packet loss or retries, and it would show you what your speed and SSID and channel was on the AP that you connected to or roamed to. Under the connection tests for the diagnostic test, I'm going to choose this client device against this SSID, and I'm going to start a test and see what kind of data I can get the station to transmit between the access point and back again. And you can see that we're receiving beacons between the client to the AP, and probe requests are being sent, probe responses, there's data being generated. So we can see that we're testing the connectivity, the actual connectivity between a given client station and a given access point. So we can see that the communication is happening back and forth properly. And I'm going to let the test continue until it gets to 100% so I can see what the final results are of this test. When I enable pinging to a given host of Google or a trace to Google, you can see our trace results over here, success rate, our pinging of the host, google.com. You can see the summary of the connection test. You can see the IP address information, the default gateway, when the lease was obtained, when it expires. All good information for troubleshooting a wireless infrastructure. You can also test the connection of roaming for a given SSID. If I had more than one access point, I would be able to test this, but you would be able to show for the SSID and then click Start, and then you walk around the facility and test your roaming capabilities from one AP to the next. You also have the ability to do an Ipf test, where you can point the application to a given Ipf server to download files to or from the Ipf server to test the actual throughput across an authenticated connection on the wireless LAN. You can also find different devices. You can find clients or stations or access points for any given SSID, or pick a single node. You can, once you start the Find Me, you will see the signal to noise ratio, and basically the system will beep when you get closer or warmer, if you think about it as a hide and seek type of thing, where you're trying to find the actual device. You would be warmer or colder, and this will beep at you when you get closer to where the device is. You would use a directional antenna for this type of where's the device, because if you used an omnidirectional antenna, you would really not have any idea which way to walk, because an omnidirectional antenna would be detecting the signal in every direction around you, rather than a patch panel antenna, which would have a focused beam width, and you would know which direction you should walk in. When you turned the patch antenna toward the signal and it got stronger, you should walk in that direction. There's also a Jitter Test, where you can test the voice over wireless capabilities of an infrastructure, and you can also do GPS tests for outdoor site surveys. Now I'm going to close the application and reopen it with just one adapter connected and show you the difference in what you see with a triple adapter Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro versus a single adapter Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro. Okay, I have removed 2 of the 3 adapters and I'm going to relaunch the application. I still have the Spectrum XT card inserted into the USB hub, so I will still have to make sure that the Spectrum XT integration is still configured to be enabled. Under General, it's still enabled. Okay. So this is the application when you have a single Proxim USB adapter connected. You can see down here in the lower left-hand corner, as the scan is taking place across all of the channels, it takes a few milliseconds for it to go through each channel. But the upside of that is that you're actually scanning the 5 gigahertz infrastructure as well. If you want to check what your scan times are and adjust those, you can do that under Scan. You can make sure that all of the checkboxes are enabled to enable all the 20 megahertz wide channels all across the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz network. Your scan time is adjustable. If you wanted to increase the scan time for whatever reason, you could do that, but the quickest default scan time is 250 milliseconds. So it takes 250 milliseconds for the application to scan a given channel, and it will skip on to the next channel every 250 milliseconds. So the application, everything is basically the same except for the ability to detect the 5 gigahertz channels. You can sort by the channel here and see that we have a few different devices that are functioning in the 5 gigahertz frequencies, and you can get additional information about these devices by double-clicking on them, and then you are brought into the infrastructure mode where you can see a display of the signal-to-noise ratio, or you can look at the utilization. You can look at the CRC retry rates. There's lots of different things that you can look at. You can look at the spectrum analysis here as well, just like you could before. But I'm going to go back to the main page, and you can see all the different stations that are connected. You'll be able to tell if they're an A, B, or G station that are connected. You'll be able to tell if the access point that you're looking at is an A, B, G, or N. 5 gigahertz stations are shown with a light blue N indicator. You'll be able to tell if there's any ad hoc networks that are connected. Under channel, you don't get the single display of 1, 6, and 11 at the same time. You would basically click through each one to see a single pane for that wireless network. Say I wanted to look at channel 44, since there's an access point that's operating on channel 44. I would just click on that channel number in the list, and there's the AP on channel 149. There's an AP on channel 161, and you can get additional information about that access point, what speeds the traffic is being sent at, and all of these fields are interactive. You can expand the channel detail, the frames, the alerts, the media type, the speed. If I come over to the interference page, this is where we get more information about what's going on in the Spectrum, because we have the single adapter connected with the Spectrum XT card as well. You can see all of our icons are green, which is good. If there was interference of any sort, the icon would turn a yellowish or a red color. You can see that there's information over here that you can mouse over, and these are expandable and sortable. This shows modulated or unmodulated. You can sort these by signal strength, by the channel. You can chart the line color. So let's sort by signal strength and then chart by line color and see what we get here. So this allows us to look at different SSIDs with different line colors that will show up over here if there was a high interference score, so we could track the different SSIDs or the different access points for that matter, and see what their interference and receive and transmit information was. And the color around the chart line color is what color that line would be on the chart should we have issues. Our infrastructure list shows all of the access points SSIDs that are currently being detected. I can choose this SSID, which has a few clients connected to it, as you can see. I can look at the 2.4 gigahertz network and see what might be affecting the devices that are associated to this SSID. Testing the roaming capabilities is not possible when you're using a single adapter to run the Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro. For obvious reasons, you would need multiple adapters to sense the network and document the data while you're roaming from one AP to the next. You still get all of the Airwise reports. You get information about configuration vulnerabilities, data rates anomalies, APs that are broadcasting SSIDs, lots and lots of information that can be very useful in troubleshooting why things are not working the way they are expected to be working. You get the same thing with the top traffic analysis. Again, you're able to run reports, security alarm details, performance alarm details, lots of good information here. Again, you're able to do decodes. It's just on one channel that you'd be capturing data on because you only have one adapter connected. So you can't capture data on all of the 1, 6, and 11 channels. And under Wi-Fi tools, you still have the same tool set that you had before with the multi-adapter use of the Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro. So there's lots of really good features in the Wi-Fi Analyzer Pro, regardless of whether or not you use it with a single adapter or you use it with the multiple adapters. Personally, I would be using it more often than not with a single adapter so that I can see the 5 gigahertz infrastructure at the same time as the 2.4, and so that I can scan all of the channels and just be patient instead of just scanning the 1, 6, and 11. But if I were doing any kind of roaming testing, then I would obviously need to use the 3 adapters at the same time to test the roaming and document the roaming functions of a currently installed wireless infrastructure.